Hello, filmmakers, and welcome to the Wedding Film School Show, a podcast dedicated to the craft, business, and personal aspect of running a wedding film brand. The Wedding Film School Show is hosted by myself, Jared Haskell, and my longtime business partner, Jason McCutcheon. If you're looking for free resources or to get your wedding film business off the ground, make sure to check out weddingfilm.school or check us out on Instagram for news, giveaways, and more.
"15 years ago, things were just so different. 10, 15 years ago, things were just so different. That's when weddings were, you could have wedding photos become art.
Well, not only that, like what people wanted out of wedding art was like, I want something different. There wasn't like an industry to support expectations. It was like, oh, who has a tilt shift lens? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, who's doing selective color? That's so cool. Like there wasn't, you didn't see that in Brides magazine.
Right.
Maybe you did. I never recall seeing like any of the stuff that I saw all the artists I knew making.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like still motion. Do you remember still motion?
Yes.
Like, they were never a part of the industry. Not really.
No, they weren't.
Like you never saw them like on like
really.
Martha.
And they aren't anymore.
No, but it was just like they just did their thing and they just did. Maybe that'd be interesting. Two old guys talking about what it used to be like. Back in my day.
Riveting content.
Well, I will say this.
Are we live right now? Are we recording?
I am recording, yes. I just started. But I actually do think like not to be young whippersnappers and all that junk, but I do think the average person who we're talking to about the wedding industry, like it's hard to extract yourself from your experiences and what you know. And a lot of what I know about the industry is because I was there as it became an industry.
Yeah.
In an authentic way, not in the way where it's like there's wedding dresses. Like it used to be like David's Bridal in a local venue, and that was the wedding industry.
Yeah.
Now it's like there's entire publications that have their wedding arms and all that junk and everything. Every time you like shoot a dress, if it's like the right Oscar dress, you're going to spark a million fast fashion knockoffs and like,
yeah,
we're moving units, baby. Like that's the industry we're in now. And it didn't used to be that way. And so I think like people who are in the industry now who pine for a more pure day, I've been on both sides of the fence. I actually prefer it now.
Yeah.
And that's just me. That's just me. And I think that's where where I diverge from most of my artist friends is I'm like, dude, we were all just chasing a dragon back in the day. None of us knew what was going to work. We were all just guessing. Now I know reliably every time how to make money.
Yeah.
For me,
I mean, this is something I bring up sometimes when I talk about our journey, our timeline, our business sort of path, is that when we were starting out, rather, it was, we were doing our best to take a guess at what would work. And we were shooting selfishly and shooting for what we thought was cool. And thankfully other people thought the same thing. But don't make any mistake about it. We didn't necessarily know any of this was going to work. And I made plenty of mistakes along the way.
No.
Now, 15 years into it, I can look back and say, here's what was good, here's what was bad. But I didn't know those first 5-7 years. We just had really no idea.
I'm going to introduce you.
And we got lucky. We got lucky to an extent. There's no doubt about it. So, but like whenever I do these talks and teaching and things like that, it's important to remember, like we didn't have some genius master plan from year one. That was just not how it went.
Well, and if you're listening to this, by the way, I just started in the middle of the conversation, but this is Ryan from Forged in the North. He's going to be at Clarity with us. He runs a great studio called Forged in the North. Like I mentioned, they do a lot of photo, but they do really amazing video as well. And he's been doing this for 15 years, Ryan?
Yeah.
Based out of, the New York City, Brooklyn area. And anyway, to your point, I totally agree. And I think it's one of the things I most struggle with when I don't consider myself an educator because no one pays me any money to do it. Quite frankly, maybe a little bit, but not enough to make it worth my time at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider it just like part of my expression as an artist to talk about art. That's what I enjoy, in business. I enjoy that. And I like helping people. And so one of the things I struggle with is like if you're genuinely trying to help people versus make money off of them. If you want to make money off people, just say whatever it's going to take to get them to give you some money. And usually that's, I'm going to help you make more money easily, or I'm going to make you feel better about the money that you make, even if it's not a lot of money. If you can do those two things and make a person think that everything's going to turn out great for them, they will pay you money. I don't believe any of that, and I don't need the money, so I don't do that. What I try to do is tell you the truth about my experiences. And just like Ryan brought up right there, like when you're like probably 15 years in, right, Ryan?
15, yep.
Yeah, we're a similar kind of timeline. We came up in a similar part of the industry. This, like I said, it was a pre-formative. It was like the Wild West. It was like early internet, so there was tons of content coming out, and couples were looking. It was like the first time where people were exposed to the idea of weddings creators as artists, as opposed to like a utilitarian device that happened in your town. Like who's the wedding? Like I know growing up, there was a studio still open to this day, Morin Studios. And it's crazy to think now, Ryan, but can you imagine doing all the senior portraits and weddings? And not just like senior portraits, like they would come in and also do school pictures.
Yeah.
They would just like set up, do all your school pictures, like with the crazy backgrounds, also do your wedding. The guy who was making the thing was a technician. Nobody had any understanding or expectation that a wedding creator had anything approaching taste.
Yeah.
That wasn't the thing.
Yep.
And so I think when it first started happening, like people like Ryan and I were getting involved in the industry, and I don't know your exact artistic background. I come from like playing in punk and hardcore bands, watching avant-garde cinema. Probably like, I don't know how you felt, Ryan. Do you remember this sense of like, crap, I have to do weddings when you were originally starting? Or were you like, oh, this is so cool?
The first inspiration I had, major inspiration, was Max Wanger. And he does still do some weddings, although I think he's gotten out of it mostly. But he was one of the giants in the industry when I was coming up and learning, and Heidi and I were starting to shoot our first weddings. It's the first time we saw wedding photos that blew us away. And we were just like, whoa, that could be a wedding photo? Like, he's breaking all the rules. Like, that's not allowed, but he's doing it. And it's compelling and emotive and interesting and all those things. And so there was an initial inspiration in that of like, wow, maybe we can make some art out of this. Heidi and I, our backgrounds are in architecture, so we always come at things through a design process. And for us, there was also an aspect of photography feeling so simple by comparison to architecture. So as a little anecdote, like when I first got my first architecture job in New York City, I came in and the firm I worked at had done One Bryant Park, which is the Bank of America Tower. At the time, it was the second tallest building in New York, first LEED Platinum skyscraper in the world. There was a lot of very cool things about this building. There were people in the office, many people in the office, who had been working on that one project for 12 plus years. So you put a camera in an architect's hand and you can click a button and you just created the thing
and it's
in a moment.
Yep.
And it's basically done of, some editing, sure. But like, basically you have it. That was mind blowing to someone who's like coming out of the architecture process. So that initially intrigued us, I think. But getting back to your question, there was definitely an element of weddings are temporary. Weddings are a stepping stone. I think most people who get into weddings probably think that.
I think definitely back in
Um,
those days, 100%. I think it might be, we
yeah,
can talk about that in a little bit, but I
yeah,
do think it might be changing now, but anyway.
it could be changing. And that's great. I think because well, there's just a lot more inspiration out there for people to do this as a career, to do great work. So that certainly has to be changing, to your point. But I know at the time I initially had left architecture to do commercial directing, and so I got a very humble gig shooting a Nissan commercial, and weddings were always kind of alongside my commercial directing work. But I think it was like I was on my own. Heidi had quit her job about a year after I did, and so we would just take any gig we could get, and weddings were part of that, right?
Yeah.
But I certainly thought that the weddings would be phased out. Commercial directing would be my career, and I hit that hard for a good 5-6 years, where I was repped. I was consistently working on commercial work. Those were really formative years for me, and certainly I lean on a lot of the knowledge from that with what we do now in weddings. But it wasn't until let's see, what would it be, year 8, where I started to really think about, oh, maybe weddings are the best route long term. Every commercial job I got shot somewhere else around the country, around the world. I was constantly writing treatments, which you do not get paid to write treatments.
Bro, when people go, oh, I like commercial, I want to do commercial, I'm always like, I did a lot of commercial. You couldn't, and I mean this literally because now you actually can't. You could not pay me to write another treatment and lose the job.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't understand what it's like to, especially in filmmaking, it's not this way in like commercial headshots and like things like that. If you are working with, first of all, the companies that can hire video also can afford to pay the lowest bid.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes they will. They don't like there's so many things. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's like the thing. It's like,
no. I mean, most people don't understand, to get into serious commercial work. And I'm not talking about, oh, I did this little brand piece, a little content piece. That's great. And actually, maybe that's a better future than where the other things are going.
Maybe it is the future as we're going forward. Who knows?
But most people have to keep in mind, serious commercial work is always triple bid, which means there's only a 1 in 3 shot you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you're losing most of the jobs you are attempting to get.
Yep.
You are writing a lot of treatments, spending a lot of time doing that. Now, once you get more established, you do have people that help you do these treatments. Of course, you have treatment writers, you have people putting together these decks, and you're kind of more approving. But it takes a long time to get to that point.
And I will say this, if you can't build up a wedding video business, you're probably not going to get a business going where you can hire someone to write treatments for you. Like, it is, for some people, for many people, the right path. But it is not all it's cracked up to be. If you are, especially if you own it. Yeah. If you just work on the crew, maybe it's perfect for you. You're the camera op or a DP or something like that. But like if you're owning a studio and you're saying, I'm going to own a wedding video studio, or that's going to do the same amount of revenue, or I'm going to own a commercial studio, you're going to do all the money in 1/10 the jobs in the commercial, and you'll have to bid for weeks and weeks and weeks of your life trying to make that money. And half the time, you're not even going to know why it failed.
Yeah.
They're not going to call you and be like, here's what we didn't like about your pitch.
Yeah, exactly. They oftentimes they will bid out to directors just already knowing they're not going to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because with cost controllers attached to agencies, they have to triple bid almost everything. It's just part of the system. Most of the ad agencies are part of big conglomerates, so they have these very institutional regulations and rules about how they go about bidding vendors and things like that. But yeah, it's significantly more cutthroat. There's no question. To get into serious commercial directing,
And-
it's significantly more cutthroat than the wedding industry. And at the time, I was thinking, I don't want to be traveling all the time. I want to sleep in my own bed. I want clients that say heartfelt thank yous to me after I make something for them.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky. You'd be so lucky as a commercial director for anyone to just write you a thank you note.
Well, you don't even have a direct line
after
of
you deliver
communication
something.
typically for the person who you made it for.
No,
the
there's
company.
so many. Yeah, it's a web of people that are involved.
I've almost never seen anything that I've ever made ever deployed properly.
Yeah.
It's almost always like, yeah, make this thing. Like we just launched a new initiative for hiring, and we need like people talking about like how it's great to work here or something. So you shoot this thing, and then you do all these interviews. You work on it for like 3 weeks, and then you send it to them. They're like, they say nothing for 4 weeks, and then suddenly they give you a bunch of revisions they need in 3 days. You do the revisions, then they say nothing, and you're like, maybe they're gonna no, actually you just see it randomly somewhere. They don't even send it to you, they don't tell you anything. You want to talk about like what is rewarding about commercial work is how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's not
and
like
I would
they're
say
grateful.
For me, the collaborative process was very rewarding.
Me too.
So I started doing this in my early to mid 20s when I knew nothing. And everyone on my team that was ever a part of it, whether it was my DPs, my gaffers, my production designers, art department, anything, they were always significantly more talented and more experienced than I was. And so I was able to grow quickly because of that. And so I'm very thankful that I had such talented people that I could work with to make my ideas and direction come to life. And that part I miss. That part I miss a lot. I miss some of the DPs I worked with a lot. I miss some of the producers that I worked with. But it's all at a trade-off. And I know some people that started in weddings, went into commercial directing. I have a good buddy, and he's doing pretty well now as like kind of up and comer young director. We'll see what AI does to this whole industry. Or you and I were texting about some of this stuff.
I have a friend who kind of concurrently started commercial and wedding, and he is a very high demand director of photography in Rhode Island. Does pretty much anything significant because there's not that much going on in Rhode Island. but he's doing all a lot of work and traveling, like you said, and doing all that. And he's like, I don't want to do weddings. I got to stop. He's like, I can't. And I think this is like, if you're listening to this, to me, this is like the big difference between the two types of creators in terms of what they enjoy about the creative process. If you enjoy planning, setting up, executing your vision to perfection, that process of wrestling with that part of the creative process, you probably will find weddings actually disturbing. You will walk away and always have that conversation where you're like, I left something on the table. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. You always think about the ways that it didn't look the way you want or go the way you want. But if for him, that was him. Like he's the type of guy, like I'm the type of guy who's like, what are we doing for a shoot? And I'm like, oh, we got this light. Let's try it. Let's see what we got. This is 60X. Maybe we can shoot with it. He's like, you'll never be bright enough. That's never bright enough. Right. You need a 1200D. Yep. That's the only light. That's the only thing that will work. And like, he's usually right. And I'm more willing to be like, let's try it. Let's try this. I like just flying by the seat of my pants, seeing what inspires me in the moment. Oh, that's interesting. That's not how commercial work goes, but it is how weddings go.
Right.
And if you are like, want to create like pure, like inspiration in the moment. You barely need to prepare.
Yeah.
You just show up and go. And it's all your emotional intelligence, your ability to be fun, make people feel good. You're going to love weddings. And I find like those types of personalities like usually gravitate towards like the chaos of the events, and which has its own kind of muse, or like the planning and preparation of commercial work, which is also its own thing. But I will say for both of us, we have different backgrounds in terms of commercial. Mine is not as prestigious as yours. But I am the same as you. Like, even though I don't actually care about the 1200D, I have a lot of nice lights and good lights, and now I understand how that stuff works. But I'm like, it's not like something I'm overly passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I have knowledge about it informs how I treat window light at weddings.
Yeah.
Like, I am good at weddings now because I got pretty good at commercial work.
Completely. They sharpen each other in different ways. Although you just, to your point, you just don't really see commercial crews like migrating over to the wedding side very frequently. I think because it is so different. With weddings, you're really squeezing lemonade out of the situation.
That is the art.
That is the art. And with commercial work, you're not really doing that. I mean, there's sometimes maybe when you're doing that, but you're really building something from the ground up with commercial work. It's just a very different process. I mean, I know some of the DPs I worked with had told me, because they knew I did weddings at the time, and they would mention to me that they're like, oh man, I shot a wedding once, I'll never do it again. It's just different personality types, different ambitions, and
I mean, if you're listening and you're struggling with these kind of thoughts, just realize there's a good reason why one could feel good to you and the other one could feel bad.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this is something I've talked about in the past, but I do like dispelling this idea that weddings are just inherently this stepping stone to commercial work. Like, speaking from someone who did the opposite move, kind of, or at least pursued both very heavily and then chose the wedding path. The weddings have a lot to offer that commercial work did. I mean, for starters, you're booking things so far out. Commercial work, every time an agency reached out to my producer, it was like, okay, hey, here are the boards. We need a treatment in 4 days. You're going to get on a director's call in 6 days, and we're awarding next week, and we're shooting in 2.5 weeks in wherever. It's so go right when you get the job. And that's why it's partially also very difficult to do both at a high level. You can't be telling Apple, oh, sorry, I got a wedding that weekend, we can't shoot.
Well, yeah,
that stuff
totally
won't fly.
Not only that, like, if almost not every, but I feel, maybe it's just like trauma, but I feel like every commercial job I got was like 4 a.m. call time.
Yeah.
like you're not.
Yeah.
Are you doing commercial work if you're not there at 4 or 5 a.m.?
No, I remember making these call sheets with the like line producers, and we'd be talking about the shots that I want to get and stuff, and like, yeah, almost always I'm like having everyone get up balls early because I want to get that good light.
Opens at 9. They're going to show up at 10. You have 4 hours of lighting pre-set up to go, and they won't let you in the day before. And then like, you don't know how tall the ceiling actually is because it's just into a bad picture and nobody bothered to send the measurements to you. And like, it's a totally different thing. But I agree.
Yeah.
It's not a stepping stone. And in so much as like, you do this to do this. I think for both of us, like I said, very different journeys, but similar in some ways. And that like at one point, commercial work was most of our revenue at our studio as well. And so this is what I want to get to in terms of the weddings and clarity and kind of one of the reasons I like, not just like you as a person, but I really appreciate your perspective is I think you understand this more than most people, which is really like the idea of like both. You said something that really resonates with me. And I realize my background in this is part of why we are unique in the wedding industry in general, because I want to work with other, like I come from commercial and various production. I want to work with other people. Like I don't know anyone who does production by themselves. That's not how the industry works. Like you're like, first of all, specialization is a big thing. Second of all, team dynamics and collaboration is a big thing. Like almost never in a commercial setting do you go, this was an idea by this person.
Yeah.
It's a crew.
Yeah.
And I think both of those kind of ideologies are really at the core of what we do. Myself with Stop Go Love and our studio, you with Forged in the North. How has working like in a team-based environment informed how you guys approach weddings?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind on that is just learning and getting inspired by each other. And initially, 10 years ago, when we formed Forged in the North, so there's a little bit of history before that, but 10 years is when we started officially Forged in the North. We had two people come on who were very novice, but the one had been working with us for a while. The other we met through a mentor session. And I basically convinced him to not go to med school because I thought he was a really good photographer and that he should probably not become a doctor, because many of the doctors I know are very, they're very overworked and stressed out all the time. And I was like, you really could make a career out of this. And then, next thing I know, he's emailing me that he's moving to New York and going to SVA for an MFA. And anyway, that's how that started. So we were a big inspiration to them starting out. But within a few years, like with Paul, it became very quickly that he's more talented than us. He sees things in a way that I will never be able to see them. And now he's a very big inspiration to me. So that to me is a very cool part of this like team environment that we have, where, and we can get into the nitty gritty on this because maybe there's something interesting about this, but for a very long time, we were all priced at the exact same level. So we were not like Ryan and Heidi and then studio shooters or associate shooters. It was just like, we were a whole collective that you could pull from and pick and choose for your wedding. So that was a big part of the collaboration aspect, I would say.
Can I ask a question about, because one of the things me and Jared with our studio, like our goal is that everyone looks exactly the same, which I know is different. Like when we sell Stop Go Love, they're going to get Stop Go Love no matter who shows up. That's the promise. Yeah. And that's also how we streamline editing and all that, is like, we're not trying to make a unique video for every person because that would take forever. And that's just our way of doing it. But it's interesting that with our studio, we were like, basically we erased everyone's names. There are no people. Like you just call us up, you get the brand. You don't choose who it is. Now, some people still try to do that, but in general, versus you who have like a much more like highlight the artist, like you can get different styles. What's interesting about both approaches is both approaches produce brand continuity. And I'm curious like how you could do it totally different, but there's something, why do you think it's like baked into the cake of team building that no matter what, if you work with people, ends up being like, do you find that there just ends up being a common creative language? People become more the same, or their uniqueness more comes out, or is it just this totally new amalgamation? And that's what the brand is.
It's a great question. It's a little bit of all of those actually in a weird way. initially I would say Heidi and I, because we were in the industry longer and before everyone on our team, we had a chance to build our own identity and our own voice as artists. And the people who were attracted to that and who worked with us fed off that to an extent. But then, like I just mentioned, they took that and leapfrogged. And now we get to have that ping pong back and forth creatively of seeing what we're doing and the different things and how it's evolving. So like Benjamin on our team, he started he didn't shoot his first video work until, God, I mean, we were 8 years in the industry when he like first picked up a camera. So for a while we were his major inspiration, and because he was a part of the studio, that was sort of the standard he had with his work. But now he's exploring all these other avenues with his work that we haven't really showed yet publicly, but different ideas. And we've gotten to a point where, because we all had a kind of a similar baseline, now when each of us grow in different directions, there's still something about the work that feels cohesive. And we're totally okay with everyone on the team kind of going in a different direction, because I think it almost makes it easier for me to talk to couples and planners about who they should hire, because I can kind of go through who might be the best fit. So yeah, it's a really interesting question, but it's kind of like
it's interesting because there's no answer, because
totally
the lines become so blurred, because it's like if I hire Caleb and Caleb starts editing a certain way, he started editing that certain way based off the baseline that I gave him. So essentially he's like me plus him. And then he's editing, and then I'm like, what's going on there? Oh, I'm going to start applying that. And then I'm going to maybe go in and say, stop putting that there, put that here, and do it this way every time. And he's going to start doing that. And it's like, it really is interesting when you start looking at your own art and realizing, this is why when artists say this, one thing that drives me nuts. You hear artists who will be like, I won't play that song anymore. And I go, why? I'm not going to play it because people are misinterpreting it. And I don't want to be interpreted that way. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't belong to you anymore. You put it out in the world. Now it belongs to everyone. That's how art works.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, usually we think of that as like the finished body of work as having a life of its own. But really the creative process has a life of its own too. The creative process has a life of its own entirely, in terms of like we could even get into like, what is a self? What am I? Am I me or am I me and you? Like, what makes anything of this stuff work? Yeah. I think if you work with people that you love, and I think this is what I want to get at, because I think you would agree on this. People talk about teams a lot. And if you're coming to clarity, I would encourage you, bring your team questions. You're not going to have much better people than Ryan and I to talk to you about it. We come from different vantage points. We have different ways of doing it. But I think we both agree on this one thing. And this is probably the glue that holds it together. And I'd love to hear you talk about this, because it's awesome. It's really about forming a culture and a family. And if you can't do that, you won't have any of the good stuff we're talking about. But if you can do that, you can do a lot of things differently than other people, and you'll still have a really beautiful collaborative environment.
Yes. And the thing is you can say a term like that in a business environment, and it can be real, because we're not talking about building out a 50, 100, 500 person company where this idea of family, it doesn't quite exist in the same way at those scales. We're talking about 10, 15 people tops for most cases. I mean, maybe there's studios out there that have 20 people somehow. I don't know. I'd love to hear about it. But for us, like, a huge part of this, and this is honestly, again, we can get into, this is another rabbit hole we can get down. We don't have contracts or agreements or anything with any shooter and out of either studio. So there's 12 of us total now. 11 of us total now. We don't do agreements. Part of that is because if I just would never really hire someone to be a part of our team that I need a signed piece of paper to trust them. For me, it's just not how I like to do it. There's plenty of problems with what I'm saying, and I understand as I'm saying it. There are issues you can get in. But this is how we've done it, is that it is a family. It's people that we trust. It's people that trust us. That is so much of the problem of building a studio, is just finding the people. It's like, I can tell you all the things about how we run it. I can give you all the nuts and bolts about every aspect of it. But at the end of the day, like, you have to find the right people to be a part of the team. That is so much of it right there.
Well, and also, like, how is your culture reproductive? Like, it's not just like, people always ask me, how do you find people? And I'm like, I don't know, a lot of ways. Like, what they're really asking me is, this is why I never answer the question. Because what they're really saying is, tell me where I need to go. And I'm like, you need to go where you're going to be effective to find the people. Like, so if you're not a person who cares about anyone, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
At running a studio. You don't care about community. Why should anyone care about you? Why should anyone? They're not just working for you to become, so that you can become rich or you have more time with your kids. That's garbage. Who wants to do that for you? My opinion, like, I come from, like, for me, a religious background. So I get my people at church. I meet people at church. That's what I go to naturally. I meet a young guy. I say, how are you? And I say, hey, I want to mentor you. I want to help you in your life. You seem like a cool guy. This is what I do on the side. Would you like to come and make some videos with me? It's natural. It's part of who I am. Yeah. I used to teach high school. I would meet a guy in high school. My business partner, I taught in high school. Like, my life has been investing in the next generation and helping them become better artists. That's what I like to do. So naturally, I have a studio. I always think through, like, when you're just trying to make money off of people, why is someone going to be excited about joining that?
Yep. That last part is, and I think we will get into this a lot more at Clarity, but I've never advocated for people to build out a team in a way that is self-serving initially. We've found great success in first solving the problem of how can I help that person? What do they need in their life? What do they need in their finances? If we can solve that, I'll kind of backtrack and figure out how we can make it work for us. That's the easy part in my mind.
Yeah.
And so part of what I mean by that is we have two different studios. Forged in the North is individual artists who are couples are working from, like, the beginning all the way through the end. They're doing all the editing. We don't make much money off those people. And we'll get into all the numbers at Clarity. I'm happy to share all of it. We really honestly don't make much money from Forged in the North studio. Money was never the goal. And it's a whole nother trail. We'll leave that off to the side. Our other studio, very different. That one is for people not looking for full-time work. So everyone on the Forged in the North team are making six-figure income that's their main bread and butter. That's their job. The After It All team, this is more weekend money, side hustle work. Maybe they have a job, one's in school, they're doing other things. They're not looking for a whole nother full-time job. So we realized there was a lot of people that fit that category. And so we solved a problem for that and then backtracked it to figure out how we can make it work for us. So we have the kind of two studios operated differently in that way. But again, the goal, if you have a lot of leads, that's the first step in my mind. You have to get the lead,
you got
the lead generation. If you have more leads than you know what to do with, that is a great starting point for building a team, but it can never be, how am I going to get rich? How am I going to make money? I don't think that's the right approach. I think you're going to have a high turnover. You're going to not find the right people. And people will know they're getting taken advantage of. So you have to build an environment that makes sense for the other people on the team.
You know what's interesting about what you just said, besides that it's true, is, so I don't know, this might not happen. So this is very much a thing in progress. When we started our business, we used to work with a guy named Frank. We love Frank. He's a great guy. He was like, he wanted to do his own thing, but he wanted to also do some weddings with us. And he's like part of the family. And then he was like, he met a girl. They moved to Tucson. They stopped shooting for us. And he's kind of out of weddings, all that junk. Comes back to town. What does he do? What's up, guys? Hey, you guys ain't ever need anyone to do weddings again? Like, if you create and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes, like, we had negotiations with him at one point and we weren't able to do what he wanted. We didn't have the ability to meet his financial needs. And we said, hey man, like, this is what we can do. And if you're interested, great. If you want to go off and do your own thing, great. Let us know. Yeah. And like, you keep that door, like, you never move into that adversarial relationship with your team. You always have to wish them the most success and to do the best that they can. And you never know when it comes back around to you. It's like, you can call it karma, you can call it whatever you want. I think if you always look out for people, and create more allies than enemies, it's like, if you leave how many times do you hear this question, Ryan? Like, people ask a lot of questions about teams, and one of the number one team questions you probably get, because I get it all the time, is, but how do you keep them from leaving you?
Yeah.
I'm always like, I don't. Why would I keep them from leaving me? Like that. How do you keep your wife from leaving you?
Right. Maybe just treat them like someone you love and treat them fairly, and fill their needs and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, it's a great point. Again, like, when Forged in the North was set up, we wanted that to be a long-term team situation. The theory, which turned out to be true, was that it's better to expand the brand, have more touch points out there in the wedding industry with two extra people, so doubling our team, build more relationships with planners, with venues, etc., all the things. It's better to do that as a exercise in job security, as an exercise in stability, rather than prioritize profit early on. So that turned out to be true, because what that got us was the ability to then open up a second studio with another 6 people over there. And that those jobs, even though they're at a lower price point for our clients, we actually make 2 to 3 times profit margin per wedding at a lower price point.
And the team probably enjoys it.
And it's perfect for them, because those people, that's what they want. And so, you really do have to have this long-term mindset of investing in your company that's in a way that will, pay dividends 5 to 10 years down the road, rather than an immediate profit. And just as one more little anecdote on this, for a lot of the first bookings, and we're talking the first few years of having Paul and Ben on our team, we would take our commission, our cut that we would take off the top of each job for our portion, and give that as an entire discount to the couple. So we make 0 money on the job. It's not even that we're not making that much. For so many of the early jobs, we made 0, because I thought it was so important for certain jobs to get booked with our studio shooters, to build their portfolio, to build our reputation, blah, blah, blah. So that turned out to be really, it just paid a lot of dividends to us later on.
Giving people the best shot to succeed is actually how you build a studio.
Yeah.
Like, it is not about scaling your gross revenue.
Yeah.
Even though, because what I find most people, and I think this is going to be one of the, if you understand, don't know what clarity is, we're having a conference in New York City, February 3, you might be listening to this in the future, and you missed it, so sorry. But if you haven't, head over to clarity-retreat.com, and tickets start at $999. And we're going to be talking about some of this stuff, and because I want to get into like this idea of like the business side of this, which is like, I want to dispel the myth that people who are doing $1 million or whatever of gross revenue in weddings are making more money. I don't think that we are making more money than people with their own business. There are different reasons why you want to do things with your business. And like I said, just like there's different reasons why if your mentality is a certain way, you're not going to enjoy weddings. You're going to enjoy commercial work. And I think like at the end of the day, like, we're not advocating for everyone in the business to have a studio. But we are saying that if you want to start a studio and you want it to succeed, you probably need to be signing up for a leadership role, which means like mentoring, training people, teaching people. But more than anything, a leader cares for people and actually considers their needs. And also, you're signing up for a lot of management and a lot of things that are not inherently creative, that at least they don't feel creative.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, it's entirely pretty much non-creative. The other side, the running of the studio part.
But one of the things I want to end with is this: you as an artist, you're still at your core a creator, and like you're still love doing. I'm assuming, I could be totally wrong, but I'm curious if this is how you feel. When I go to office, because I keep office hours. I go to work, I work with my teammates, I serve my team, I try to help them do their jobs, and then I go home at night and have dinner with my family. But I also get to shoot weddings, which is, the whole wedding schedule. When I'm shooting weddings, I tell my wife this all the time. I go, it's the one time in my life where I actually feel like I can turn my brain off. Like, it's doing the thing that I feel like most at home naturally doing. And I feel good about it. I feel like I'm good at it. And I feel like I'm doing a good job. I feel like when I'm working with my team that I'm almost never doing a good job. Like, even if I am, it's the feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm trying to sell these weddings. I'm trying to like make a brand. I'm posting on social media. Is any of this working? Like, do you ever feel like that as an artist? Like, almost like art is like a retreat from reality.
A lot of thoughts coming into my head on this one. Heidi and I joke all the time now. We have 3 kids under the age of 6, and we run the studio of 11 people, and we joke all the time that going to a wedding, no matter how good or bad it is, just feels like a vacation. It really feels like, and I think part of that is obviously the mental escape, kind of like you're saying. Part of it is, I think there's something that being in it this long, like you've been, like we have been, we have a lot of control over how we're going to approach that wedding day. We're very confident that the end result will be fantastic. It's very much in our control. It's a near-term goal that we're trying to achieve. With running a studio, it's really so much more ambiguous, and there are dozens of different paths you could take, and you're hoping you're going down the right one. Shooting a wedding and editing a wedding doesn't feel that way. It's so different than that. And so, I mean, I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like, shooting a wedding now it's like the fun and easy part.
It's so linear.
Totally.
Like everything else about a studio is almost totally abstract. Like I
Completely.
did a lot of stuff over the years, marketing and all these things, and I'm sure that if I wanted to spend a week really pushing my numbers around in the room, trying to figure out what did what, that maybe I could suss out what was effective and what wasn't effective and why I might have a good week or a bad week in terms of sales.
Yeah.
But like most of the time I don't even bother because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I know my numbers, by the way, but it's like, like I'm going over we have a listing on the knot for one part of like one region, and then other regions we do another thing, and we're looking at all the numbers, and I'm like, I didn't lose money, so like that's good. Should we do it again? Maybe, like maybe not, like because like we both know if you're advertising, eventually one year every advertising platform will crater and it will be over. There's no platform, magazine, like Facebook will go away someday. I hate to tell everyone. Like, there's nothing that will always work. Except if I go to a wedding and I shoot it. That will always work.
Yeah.
And I think that is why a lot of people gravitate towards being an artist. It's that control of outcome that the skills can have, and like the feeling that you can't make a wrong decision when you're creating. I know some people don't feel that way, but I feel that way. Like if I'm trying something, I'm like, oh, that was fun. I tried something.
Yeah.
Like I feel the freedom, like the consequences of my failure is like nothing. If I make a bad decision, like with our finances of a company, I'm going to destroy a bunch of people's lives. Like everything is stressful. It's like,
I think
not to talk you out of it on the internet.
Maybe, well, no, but it's important to bring this up because like you said, it is not for everyone. I know a few people who are close friends who have attempted the associate thing, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out, and that's great for them. And now they know their kind of lane to stick in, and they pursue that. But I think people don't understand like the weight of everyone else on our team and how much money they make and what their livelihood is and work-life balance and all the things really weighs on me quite often. And so I'm always having conversations with people on our team about next steps. What are their goals? How much do they want to book? What kind of weddings do they want to be shooting? What kind of work do they want to be making? All that kind of stuff. So when you're at a wedding and you're shooting it, a lot of that disappears, and it does feel like a little escape, I think.
Yeah. And it's honestly like, I think it's true of like, you always hear people talk about flow state. It's like when you're doing the thing that you do without thinking, you're creating out of like pure expertise.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to be. And so hopefully, you're listening to this, you're getting something out of a show like this. How do people find you, Ryan? Because I know you guys have a couple different presences now on the internet. So,
I mean, definitely the main one is still Forged in the North. We're not as active on social media as I'd like to be. But that is the best place to find us, see some of our work.
Very
of course,
beautiful work, by the
website.
way. And I say
Thank you.
like,
Thank you.
As somebody who's like thinks most people's work is garbage. So, and quite frankly, it's why I if you hear me not compliment people enough is because I don't think it's that good. So that's why I don't compliment it. I'm like, it's whatever. Their work is actually like what I would want my wedding videographer and photographer to do. On a personal level, it's like scratches all those like elitist itches I have. It's like it reminds me of a coffee shop in a good way.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just went to like a percentage of Arabica and then got my wedding shot by Forge of the North.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
Yeah, and so it's like if you're into like that really, I don't like the word hipster. I think it's a meaningless term now. I'm trying to think of like what do we call it now? It's like,
Man,
it's very Brooklyn.
I don't know. I don't know. There's some, I mean, it's always so difficult to describe your own work. Um, for me, like, if there's a feeling that I want someone to have at the end of it, it's to feel like I guess one is that I want them to feel like they want to see a little more. And so I love leaving people kind of on the edge of their seats a little bit. And, but also to feel like they missed out on some epic party or some really emotional thing that happened. It could go in either direction, really. But
I mean, that's all the best art, right? It's a feeling of longing. Like when you read like, do you remember all the people who watched, I never got the fascination with this movie, to be honest. I'm an anti-Avatar person. I was like, why do people like this movie? It's terrible. It's derivative crap. I don't get it. The villain makes no sense. Like he's literally just like, America, shooting a machine gun. And it's called Unobtainium. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like it's like, this is a stupid movie, but it left people with a sense of longing. And so I remember reading this whole thing where like there was people who were so depressed after watching Avatar that they didn't live in Pandora, that they were experiencing like crippling depression, that the world that they envisioned and saw on the screen was not the world that they lived in.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, now that's psychotic, by the way, but I do think that's part of the job of art.
Yeah.
Is to transport you and make you feel. We've taken maybe FOMO to another insane level as a modern culture. It used to be like, look at that beautiful painting. I wish I could go to Baltimore someday. Now it's like, I wish I was a millionaire. You're never going to be. You might be able to go to Baltimore and look at a sunset, but you're not going to be able to go to. But I think it's a great part. And I love that you said that, because when you think about weddings, like, it's how you sell weddings, quite frankly. Like you sell weddings by creating that FOMO. Like the next couple wants that at their wedding. And it's a good thing. It's like a good FOMO. It's like you're already planning this epic party and like it's going to be fun. It's like, let's have a good time together. But I also think like it's how you enjoy art. Is like just that feeling of like kind of going there and being there. Like I always think about like, I want a person watching this video. I actually had a bride one time say this, and I thought it was really gross at the time, but I also, in hindsight, I was like, they probably all think this. She was like not liking her video and for ridiculous reasons. Like at one point she looked at the footage. She's like, I don't know, the light is just so orange. We're like, that's called a sunset and it's called golden hour. Like, that's the color of the light. Like you went outside to shoot those photos. You were physically there. Like you saw the light and you saw the color that it was. And that's the color that it is. I guess I can white balance it badly, but just so you know, most people really like that light. Like, so, but she was like, I just think I want people to watch this video who didn't go and just be so mad that they weren't invited.
Wow.
I was like, what? So you want people to watch your video and feel bad? But it's funny because I think like on some level I resonate a little bit with the idea that like kind of what you said. Oh, wow, that was sick. I wish I could go to that. Like I want people with wedding videos to feel that way about weddings in general, not just the weddings I shoot, but just the weddings. And so I connect with that. I resonate with that. Anyway, Ryan, I'm excited to have you in a couple weeks. We're going to be in New York together. I'm excited to have you connect with mostly filmmakers, but maybe some photographers. And if you're a photographer listening to this, you are more than welcome to come. We have LaRev. We have Fior Films, who is New York based as well. We're going to be having Julia Kentner, who is out of St. Louis, and of course, Ryan, myself, and the Wedding Film School folks. And we're excited to be there. We're excited to be collaborating. Some of the people who are attending are really dynamite too. Like they could teach their own classes, have their several of them have their own podcasts. So it's going to be a really good crew. If you're like really looking for something that's pro-centered and really centered around people looking to go to the next level. And this, and I don't mind saying, even financially, like for me, getting around other professionals, I want to talk about art, like hyper focused, insane, abstract artistic concepts. I want to have those conversations because no one can talk to me about it. My wife is like, what are you talking about? She doesn't want to talk about it with me. My kids definitely don't. And I want to talk about business, making money, doing better, being sustainable, being profitable. And so when I think about oh look, Sharon's calling me right now from Fior Films. So when I look at all these things, if you're looking for that, head over to Clarity, get a ticket today. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. We're excited about it, and I'm excited in a couple weeks we're going to be even have a good time together.
Thanks, man. Excited to learn myself, honestly. Like a big part of it is just being there to learn and collaborate and hopefully, I don't know, impart a little wisdom that I might have. So
yes, and of course,
looking forward to it, man.
We all look forward to making millions from it. So if you're looking to become a millionaire, come to Clarity.
Why stop there? Billions.
What?
Just
our goal is to pull our money together and buy back Twitter. So head over to Clarity if you want to own Twitter. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching the Wedding Film School Show.